right, and we're back to another episode of Hempire. I'm once again Pete Bahrenburg, along always with co-host, CEO, and founder of Purewell, my buddy Nick DiFrancesco. What's up, man? It's been a minute.
It's been a minute, Pete, but we're back in the saddle. We're ready to go. For everybody, you know, we
Getting a little salacious here.
Well, you know, the thing is you guys always hear these shows, and we don't miss a beat when it comes to that. But we took a couple weeks off for some unfortunate events, and you know, I lost my mom, so it's not been an easy one. So, but we are back. We are ready to go, and I lost my voice. And right, and so we're back. We're ready to go. So, obviously, we're about to hear a story about a former Playmate turned a serial entrepreneur. She moved from Australia to the Las Vegas Strip, and I'm excited. I think this is going to be an amazing one. I'm just love to hear the story, and I don't know. Let's Peter, who are we welcoming in?
So what you're trying to say is someone came from the strip clubs to the strip in Vegas. Maxine Fensom, she's the entrepreneur for Las Vegas Cannabis Tours and Weddings. So, Maxine, how are you doing today?
Look, I'm very well. I just want to say, Nick, I'm very sorry about your mum and sending you lots of love.
Thank you so much.
But apart from that, I just want to say thank you very much for having me, and I'm excellent. Thank you.
I mean, look, it's tough, right? I mean, anybody that knows have gone through losing somebody that's very close to them. It's not easy, and you know, I know that she'd want us to keep it going, and she's always a happy person. She wouldn't want to be upset, or you know, she would want us to let the show go on. So so that's what we're gonna do. So obviously, you know, before you were you know, in the wedding business, you were excelling in adult entertainment, of course, and you were the former Playmate Australia Playmate of the Month. You established the Australian Adult Industry Awards, which was kind of, you know, there we go, and you got some help from Larry Flynt, of course, of Hustler. And you know, it's crazy because I was reading about it, and it was talking about that you had opened basically a very popular Maxines Gentlemen's Club in Melbourne. So how did you connect with Larry Flynt, and you know, how did that all happen?
Well, I was in Berlin. I went to an exhibition called Venus, which is where everybody from around the world goes to buy wholesale and to mix and basically, you know, see what's going on. And at the time, my ex-partner, we were like importing lingerie and getting all the big brands from around the world, and then obviously, you know, retailing it out online and wholesaling it. And I walked past Larry Flynt's stand, and I said, oh, I'd really love to meet him. And it happened to be his nephew, Jeff, who was there. And he said, well, if you come back in half an hour, you can meet him. And I said, okay. And so we just started chatting. And so anyway, I met Larry Flynt. I was the first one up, and being a pushy Aussie. And I said, I'm the queen of pussy, and I'm the king of, you know, pussy, and, you know, blah, blah. Made an idiot of myself, and he just looked at me. And they liked me enough and thought, oh, who is this chick? So they invited me to the opening of Hustler in Paris. And that was 2 days away. And I was going to Paris. So it was, you know, I just happened to be there. So I went, and I couldn't believe it. I'd never been in such a crazy atmosphere. If you can picture, it was, I think they flew in like 150 of the most beautiful women in America, and just super glamorous. They had the tallest pole of my life. Then they had a Perspex first floor, so that there were people upstairs and then girls coming down the pole with this heavy, heavy metal music. It was like, what the fuck is this? And I want to do it. And so
It sounds like a party.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
I was asked this party afterwards, and I met Harry Money, who was Larry Flynt's business partner and good friend. And I just said, look, I really want to do this. And so I didn't even have a club at the time. I had nothing. I had like a restaurant. I had like a stripping agency where I'd send out male and female strippers for bachelorette parties and stuff. But had a restaurant where people would come and do lingerie. You know, the businessmen would come and participate in lingerie lunches. And I just thought, well, you know, I'm an Aussie battler and I'm just going to ask. They can only say no. So I just said, I'd really like to collaborate with you. So went back to Australia the next day, so hungover, rang Harry Money and said, I'd like to take you out for lunch. And so I flew back to Los Angeles and I met with him and Jimmy Flynt. And then Harry came over and then that was it. I started looking for a building and that's how it all came about. I had the Hustler brand for 2 years in Australia. And then, you know, people didn't really understand, I think, and this is a sort of naivety about Australians who are a little bit slow. They just said, oh, is that man that's in the gold wheelchair? They didn't quite sort of get the two together. I think they do now, you know, a little bit. So so then that sort of morphed into Maxine's Gentlemen's Club. And this all happened in 2006 and then, you know, we got the club in 2007. But, I mean, it's been such a ride and it's just been amazing.
So you brought more of the brand, the Hustler brand, to Australia in general, just marketed it, brought it to Australia in general, and then obviously combined it with the strip club. Okay, because you were said that they never even really heard of it, and to be able to have that brand behind you, you know, to be able to bring to anyone. I mean,
the original Australian Hustler.
Right, the original Australian Hustler.
I mean, they were like, you know, involved. Harry and his son were involved for sure. But in the long term, it didn't really work out as far as people sort of, it didn't make a difference, if you know what I mean, unfortunately. So anyway, that sort of, you know, then it just turned into Maxines. But, you know, I still hear and see Harry and his son, Jason. And I love Hustler here. They've got an amazing show here at Hustler in Vegas called Excite, which I would love to bring to Australia, to my club, because it's just so fabulous.
Well, I just think it's funny because, and again, you know, we have Hustler stores here in Florida as well, and, you know, just retail locations as well. But it's funny because, you know, nobody partakes in any of this stuff, except it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Nobody looks at porn. Nobody buys toys. Nobody, and then, but yet, multi-billion-dollar industry. So obviously, you know, it's kind of like cannabis in the fact of it's an untalked, I don't know. I mean, you know, people talk about sex, people talk about cannabis, but they don't talk openly, right? It's not, they're still a little bashful. There's still a stigma to it, or what can I say? Or am I going to get judged for whatever you like, whether you like smoking weed or you like wearing lingerie and fishnets. I mean, it doesn't really matter, or whatever else you're into. So I do think it goes hand in hand, to be honest with you. So I thought it was kind of cool. So how did that all come out in Vegas? Because now you have, you know, cannabis weddings and things like that. So did you come to Vegas one time and you looked at some of these wedding chapels and go, hey, this is what I want to do. This is my next venture. How did that work?
No. Well, I basically started a foodie tour. I started Sin City Foodie Tours, and I had that pretty much ready to go, and the pandemic hit. And, of course, you know, Melbourne and Australia, they were really, you know, Aussies suffered really badly because, you know, the whole country was really on super lockdown. And
you guys were on a serious lockdown.
Yep. And so there was no money coming in. So my club was helping to support me over here. And then, unfortunately, my ex-partner died suddenly in our house. And that was right on the brink of the pandemic sort of hitting in Australia. So I couldn't go home because of the pandemic here. And then my dad died 2 weeks after that. So it was like just awful. And then I had no control over.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I mean, obviously, it's horrible.
I mean, it was the worst, to be honest. And then I had no control over, you know, anything because I couldn't go home. I couldn't bury either of them. I actually had an ex-stripper that I've known for years.
Yeah, that is insane.
Well, she actually had a funeral home. So what she did is, because there was only 2 people that legally could attend a funeral, so we gathered up as many people as possible. I had an open casket behind the crematorium in the car park to say goodbye to Michael. And then, of course, my dad died. So it was just crazy, crazy. And then just coping with the circumstances. So that's how it morphed from the foodie tours to the cannabis tours, because I had 2 professors from Boston who called me and said, "Oh, we heard from a friend that you were starting a cannabis tour. We're coming out. Can you take us out?" And so I did. I took them out on the most expensive tour. It was like 7 hours. We don't normally do 7-hour tours. Took them around the dispensaries. Took them back to my house where I had a charcuterie board. They had smoked some weed, and then I took them on a helicopter ride. And after that, it was just like, yep, been born. And then, of
Well,
course,
Pete, we know who we're calling when we go to Vegas.
oh, you have to come for sure. And then, of course, what happened was government made cannabis an essential service, and so everything was open. And then, because with the government paying people money, they were flying here, and you could get a room here for $10 a night. So we were flat chat.
Wow.
So I didn't even have transport, so I just basically hired like a little minivan, and then that sort of progressed to getting a 15-seater van, and we have some other transport, and so basically we cater for everything, and I'm so grateful. I did that by the skin of my teeth. I really, I used to smoke pot like when I was 18, and it was for tobacco, and so things have changed, and it was a real learning curve for me as well. So, but then I partnered up with Planet 13, and they were pretty amazing. But through all this, people were saying, "Oh, we want to get married," and I thought, well, I could do that. So I became a minister. So I'm the Queen of Pussy, and plus a pastor, a minister. And then I did a course because it's the only state where you have to, obviously because of gambling, that you do a background check and all that stuff. So I did that, and so now I'm a bona fide officiant, and I love it. So with the weddings, we cater for everything from I marry them. We do that at Planet 13 or in a grow house. They can have a wedding reception, large or small. I organise their hair and makeup if they want it. We bring makeup artists in. We do the flowers, organise the clothing. So it's kind of trippy and fabulous, and heartfelt.
First of all, fantastic. Thank you for walking us through that, because I was going to say, and you said Planet 13, right? You said because they're the biggest. Well, as far as I'm concerned, they're the biggest show in town in Vegas. I don't know if that's changed, but
no, they are. They're the world's largest.
Yeah, they're. I mean, when you walk in, it just
They're like a resort of cannabis.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's funny when you walk in, they even have this awesome. It almost looks like a fish tank on the floor, and you step over it, and there's like koi. It's all digital. It's just a really cool place. Obviously, you walk in. It's. I mean, anything you could possibly want. It's a supermarket of cannabis. But just if you're ever down in Vegas, you definitely check that out. And obviously, check out our girl here. So for all your cannabis tours and wedding needs. But is there a lot, what's the most extravagant wedding you've ever done? I mean, there's got to be some crazy stories.
Oh, well, definitely crazy stories, but the most extravagant was actually the first wedding we did. It was actually a beautiful couple. She was in a really bad car accident and on a lot of painkillers and pharmaceuticals, and her partner, they really wanted to get married, but because they couldn't because of the pandemic. And then finally they said, okay, we're going to get married. He also put her on the journey to basically start taking edibles and getting onto cannabis, and she hasn't looked back. But it was a really heartfelt, it was like a really beautiful wedding. 50 people, friends and family, actually from Florida, and it was traditional, white wedding, tuxedo. The bridesmaids were in black, and then they had a sit-down meal with a DJ, and then they had a beautiful 3-tiered cannabis-inspired cake. But it was beautiful. It was really, really beautiful. I've married all sorts. I've married people in their track pants, matching track pants and backpacks. You know.
But that's what I mean. I could imagine it's all walks of life and so many people that are, wanting to do this. I mean, why do you think that cannabis and weddings go so well in Vegas? I mean, it's definitely a novelty thing. And I'm surprised that so many people still go to Vegas to get married because, when you see in movies, you go and elope or you go to Vegas
Yeah.
but why do you think that the cannabis market is absolutely exploded in Vegas?
Oh, well, Vegas is the wedding capital of the world, as well as the entertainment capital of the world. And I think also it's like the new Amsterdam. It's got all the dispensaries, they're all completely different. They're like kind of uber glamorous, uber creative and interesting. So, I just figure people want to come to Vegas. Maybe they don't want to get married by Elvis Presley or, just do a drive through. Maybe they'd like me to marry them, in a grow house, which is a trip in itself, or at
Oh
Planet
yeah.
13. So, I think there's horses for courses. I think, people get really, really excited about, like when we do the tours, they go, oh my God, when they've basically booked and paid, they're like, oh my God, we can't wait because they've got this whole thing because it is a taboo and, it has got, there has been a stigma. So for them to sort of go behind the scenes or go into a grow house, or have the owner of Planet 13 take them in the bowels of Planet 13 and show them what's actually going on, the extractions and, where they do their pickup and deliveries and just the whole sort of mechanics of it. It is interesting and it's a new frontier, to be honest. That, it's
Right. Are you getting a lot of people that are in the Midwest? I mean, are you getting people from, because, the thing is that people don't realize it. This is not a widget, right? You have to grow it. You have to nurture these plants. There's different things that are going to need. There's different strains. There's different, there's a lot that goes into cannabis. And again, I love the story of taking somebody off of traditional medication, of course, opiates or something else, and now going to cannabis because it's changed their life. And I think that's another kinship, right? I mean, think about somebody that, again, health is wealth, right? But let's say that you're suffering from something and you've been going in and out of doctors and hospitals or whatever. And then here you have something that you try that works great, maybe works better than what you're using, maybe works the same, but there's no side effects, there's no addiction, there's no just all the things that we talk about on this show, and it changes their life. And I think that's a kinship to them as well, because they're saying, look, this has changed my life with cannabis. I want this part of my wedding of one of my most sacred days. And having that, then there's always obviously the novelty of it. And then people want to smoke and yes, seeing the grow houses.
Yep. You've hit it right on the nail there, honestly, because we have had quite a few people come through who have had those experiences. One girl had a thyroid problem, and she's now like really kicking goals. But you're correct on that. When you look about Big Pharma and you see all those ads, which I'd never been exposed to in Australia, where they have these happy families and green grass and blue skies, and they're skipping along, and they're saying this helps you, and then they say the side effects, and you just think, "Fuck me." Why would you take it?
Me just watching I'm always watching like Netflix, or watching things like that, or listening to Spotify, listening to Hempire. No, but I'm serious. Like I'm always doing a lot of commercial free. The only time really is, maybe watching football. But football, that targeting market is not pharmaceutical. So we don't get a lot of ads. But any other show, I'm up there. I'm like, every other commercial is for pharmaceuticals or scaring the shit out of the public of whatever something they might have. So they need to go run and go get a pharmaceutical for it. And obviously we are completely the opposite, right? We want to help people naturally. We're not saying that you should eat like shit and take cannabis and everything's fine. You should take care of your body. You should still eat well. You should still exercise. You should still do all the things that you're supposed to do.
I said it's organic. It's natural.
Right. Right.
There aren't, all the other sort of things that go into, whatever makes up, the things that are being advertised. But for sure, if I was ill, I would be turning to cannabis 110%. And I've said to people, I've got like a really dear friend of mine in Australia, she just had a kidney removed. She suddenly had kidney cancer. had to get it
Wow.
removed. But
Wow.
I mean, actually, medical has just come out. So, but I mean, I just think unfortunately, we are behind in just, the psyche of it. I mean, I've had people, they'll call me and I go, oh, look, I'm just on a cannabis tour. And they go, oh my God, that sounds so weird. And I go, well, it's not actually,
But
but
you see
it's
what
just,
I mean? The stigma, like it's so weird. It's so, what's weird about it? It's because it's just the same. Like, well, why would you go to a strip club? Why would you go to or I mean, they even have more, swinger clubs, all kind of crazy stuff. So right? Why would you go to Olive Garden, right? So it's right because of Red Express. Now, talking about tours. Right before this, we were talking about a little bit of an underground area in Vegas. So tell us a little bit about that. We have to touch on this.
okay. Well, I live right on the strip. So I go for a walk every day, usually either down to the Link or to the Wynn, go and grab a coffee. And right next to us is this big kind of concrete like waterway where, the water comes through. And you're always seeing homeless people down there, and then they get moved on, and then they sort of there, and then we saw this sweet couple who was sleeping on the street, and then we saw them. Oh my God, she's smoking a meth pipe. Anyway, so yeah, there's 200 miles of tunnels under glitzy, glamorous Las Vegas with 8 mayors who basically rule the underground. And apparently, some people like live normal lives and go and work in the casinos, and then go back down underground and live the underground life. But I mean,
So have you actually been down to these tunnels and things? Have you? I'm just curious of what actually goes down. Or
I've seen people go.
Have you looked down one and seen some beady eyes staring back?
I've seen stuff on YouTube, but the smell is pretty bad. And I mean, it's just.
right.
I mean, it's very, very sad, to be honest. But some people make that choice to go and live down there, like I say, and they work as well, like work up above ground. But yeah, it looks pretty awful. But the smell is so bad.
You know what I'm thinking of, Pete? Remember the movie with wasn't it Sylvester Stallone?
You're talking about
Demolition
Demolition
Man.
Man. With
That's the only thing that I could think of that would in mentally that I could paint a picture when they were having. She's like, it's a rat burger, and like they were eating rats. They were downstairs, and it was they had because of the government and the way that society was. They basically got outcasted, and they were down there and had their own society, had their own, but that's because of inflation, because of crazy pharmaceutical commercials. No, because of all, right. It's exactly what's going on now. So it is interesting, it is interesting that is known that exists. And
Sad. I think it's super sad because I mean, it's abject poverty, a lot of it, and just yeah, people who just can't. It's awful to see, but you can't look away when you see it. It's just like, oh my God, but keep moving.
right. No, it is. It's just interesting that I talk about it, and obviously going back to the hustler times, and you being how did you become the centerfold? I mean, how did that all happen? I mean, it was Playboy at first, right? So that was Hef. So obviously you met Hef, and so how did that start? I mean, you have Larry Flynt on one side, you have Hefner on the other. How did you get involved with Hefner?
Okay, well, I actually never met Hugh Hefner. It was Australian Playboy, and there was this photographer that I used to work with called Rennie Ellis, who's since passed away. He was just iconic. And I actually went to a wet T-shirt competition in a beachside town called Lorne. And he was there, and then he gave me his card, and he said, look, we are auditioning, women for Playboy. And of course, I was picked, which was amazing. And I have to tell you, it was the most incredible experience. It's something I always wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything that was too naughty. I just wanted, full nude was okay. But at the time,
Right.
had big thatch of pubic hair. So, it wasn't anything sort of like outrageous. the shoot that I did, my mother made all my outfits for me, and I did it in a house that was being renovated. So it was very unsexy. So there was builders and people walking around with my tits hanging out. But I mean, it sort of put me on the map. Yeah, it put me on the map in Australia, and then I got, for my month, I had a whole month of like basically, getting the lion's share of all the work, DJing around Australia, wearing, the suit. It was honestly, it was incredible. It was just, I just loved it. And I have to say, I did milk it for everything that I could just to get my name out there. And that pretty much started me into the road of, where I'm sort of at now. So, yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing. I mean, now what year? So this was, what year was this that you were?
1997.
Okay. So
While
that's
ago.
my point. My point is this. It doesn't ever change, right? The same things that are going on now with fans only and Instagram, and it's really the same thing, right? You mean, you basically were able to springboard your career, because of what t-shirt contest, being noticed, doing a centerfold. It's really the same thing. I mean, it's pretty,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just sex sells, right? So no matter what, sex sells, right? So, and it's not like that's never going to change. That is, but it's so funny because, you'll go to a restaurant now and nobody wants to serve tables. I serve tables. That's when I was growing up and I wanted to make some extra money. I was a server, whatever. And it's evil. Now, no kid even wants to do that because everybody wants to be an Instagram model and everyone wants to get Insta famous and all this stuff where it's different.
Well,
I mean, when you were doing it back in the day.
Well, I mean, I serve tables too. In fact, I clean houses. Like, I was working from when I was 15. And the first time I ever came to the United States, I think I had $200 in 20-cent pieces. I mean, that's all I had.
Right.
I mean, I've always been a worker. I mean, I've had people say to me, look, you should be retiring. And well, I don't want to do that. I mean, if someone else wants to retire, that's fine. I love to work. I love to create. And, I live and die by the sword as far as being an entrepreneur. I love what I do. I love doing the whole cannabis thing. I think it's fabulous. But I mean, I do have the good, bad, and the ugly as far as stories. There's been some interesting characters. But you're right, with the adult industry, it's really no different. I was just doing what was in at that moment. If I, was,
right.
Maybe I might have been a stripper. I don't know. I don't really. Knowing me, it's one thing to do some photos that are sort of tasteful, but actually, like dealing with men on ongoing basis, being naked, I think I would have been really uncomfortable and maybe told them to fuck off because I just don't think I could have coped.
And the girls are on a lot more than cannabis. It's just stripping, that's for sure. To deal with that every single night, like those girls.
Yeah.
I mean, the plants don't talk back, right? No,
Yeah.
I just love the direction. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's just saying, like with the girls, like in strip clubs, it's no different from my place in Melbourne to here. I mean, you'll see the girls come in at 6 o'clock at night, and they've got to have a couple of shots to get them going. And I mean, that's just for me. I don't like that sort of lifestyle. I like to get up early and, eat good food and stuff like that. I love a Pinot Noir, but I just don't want to be, getting out of it that I've got to deal with dickhead men. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's. I love honestly what you're doing with this. I just think it's such a great idea that you marrying the two together. I love the tours because in a way, in a lot of ways, I mean, you're doing education as well. I mean, these people really are blown away when they've seen how it's extracted or how is it grown and I applaud you because you are opening up the gates for other things. I mean, this is an easy way for someone to go on a tour is an easy way to not feel. It's almost kind of like you said, it's that it's stripping. You just want to do some pictures. It's just like you get to look from afar. You go on a tour. You don't have to feel so weird about just walking to the dispensary, not knowing anything and not having to feel that, maybe that unsureness that you don't know about something. You learn something and you see that there's actually tons of medication out there that is natural that can help you or have a good time. you can enjoy stress relief as well. And I just love what you're doing. And then being able to incorporate that with, weddings and things like that. I mean, I'm just, what I was expecting is like, wedding room full of like weed leaves everywhere, weed suits and stuff like that, just because, if you think about being just funny and, just like, fun.
Well, you think of Vegas,
It's got to have like that Vegas flair.
Just there. And definitely Elvis.
Right, Elvis like dressed up in cannabis with gold everywhere, and it's just singing and marrying you.
Sorry, I was just going to say I actually have a clothing line called Elevate Jane, and I do wear like usually like a cannabis type T-shirt or a bodysuit or something to incorporate all that sort of thing. But we have had people have turned up, the bride and groom turned up in cannabis tights, cannabis skirt, pants, jacket. So, and some people just want to do it traditional. I mean, I had one girl, she's from Miami, she's so gorgeous, beautiful. She was 52 and he was 34. And honestly, when I found out her age, I couldn't believe it. She came out, she was almost like hanging out of her dress. I mean, you can see her on my Instagram, but she's so beautiful, so sexy. And I mean, uber fabulous, like gorgeous couple, so, and they love the cannabis too, It's just it's all, I mean, one couple they married, before Planet 13 now, you've got to be 21 and over, but a few months ago, you were allowed to have children into the main area, not into the dispensary. And so they brought their child along to be part of the wedding. So, and then we've had people bring their dogs. It's just, it's a little bit different,
Right, we have pet products. They work great for animals, so it's good. But that's what it's about. Look, anything. It's a sacred day. I think, like I said, I love what you're doing. I love the idea. Loved having you on, to be honest with you, because it is interesting. People need to get in and look into how life is in many different facets. But I just think this is a great idea. So thank you so much for coming on.
It's my pleasure. Let me take you guys, on a tour when you do come here. And, if you want to give away, if you want to give away 2 passes to our lounge tour to some of your guests, you're very welcome. Just let me know, and we'll take them out to a lounge. There's a consumption lounge here too now. So that's
I love it.
Fun.
That's awesome. And why don't you go ahead with one last time, Maxine, just let everybody know where they can contact you or follow you or support you and Las Vegas Cannabis Tours.
All right, then. So the website, there's 2 of them, is lasvegascannabistours.com and also lasvegascannabisweddings.com. They can get me on 310-722-7864. The Instagram is Las_Vegas_cannabis_weddings. There's some great shots on there, including, instead of having a toast of champagne, there's the happily married couple having a bong together. And then for the tours, it's Tours Cannabis. That's our Instagram. Or if they just want to follow me, it's Maxine Fensom. So thank you.
Thank you again for listening to Hempire. This has been a great episode. Remember to subscribe, like, share on all your podcast platforms. We're talking about iHeart, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to it, especially cannabisradio.com. And for more information, go ahead and check out purewell.com. That's PURWELL.com. Use code Hempire at checkout for 20% off. That's Hempire, HEMPIRE. And until next week, we will see you guys then.